Let's find out where we're going next here.
To not check out the legislation, I recommend that you routinely visit Infowars.com, where we post key legislation that comes to our attention. But look, we're not omnipresent, and we can't keep track of these tens of thousands of bills, so it's more important for you to go to the Library of Congress website at thomas.loc.gov and peruse the bills for yourself, and maybe you can find something like Patriot Act 2 and alert folks in the alternative media so we can warn the American people and stop the New World Order from totally destroying the Bill of Rights and Constitution. I am glad to see, though, that constitutional scholars on the left and right have been universally decrying Patriot Act 2, saying that it's even worse than the first Patriot Act. In fact, the Center for Accuracy in Reporting said that it is basically the end of America. Conservative backlash. Provisions of Patriot 2 draft worry those on the right. The opposite ends of the political spectrum are coming together over the war on terror, but not in the way Attorney General John Ashcroft may have wanted. And after all this heat, he tried to deny it even existed after it's introduced in the House by Republicans and enrolled in the Senate by Democrats. And they go on to report that federal courts, despite the fact the legislation as it passed, are already ruling that the government can hold U.S. citizens as enemy combatants during wartime without the constitutional protections afforded Americans in criminal prosecutions. Isn't that nice? You're guilty until proven guilty. Not even guilty until proven innocent. They've gone light years down the rat hole past innocent until proven
Down the rat
guilty.
hole?
Another headline, CBS News, Feds win big on citizens' rights. What a deceptive headline. It goes on to say, Attorney General John Ashcroft himself had sat down to write a legal opinion that supported President Bush's immense power to strip U.S. citizens of his constitutional rights. He probably could not have penned one more powerful and sweeping than the 54-page ruling offered Wednesday by the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. And it says you have no rights, you can be secretly grabbed and never seen again for no reason. It actually says it. In fact, the new Patriot Act says Section 802 of the first Patriot Act isn't strong enough. Any action that endangers human life that's a violation of any federal or state law. It's just nuts. It's crazy.
Here we go.
The good news is my resolution, I've written a resolution.
I'll be real, though. I can't believe you thought that this was worth putting a movie out
Patriot
for.
Act 2. And towns from Utah to Florida have passed
But I don't know, maybe
hundreds
at this
of other
point,
cities,
just
as
like,
big as
let's
Seattle
take
or San Francisco,
Infowars segments
have
and
passed
just
resolutions that
release
they've
them
written
as
reaffirming the Bill of Rights and
enough of them
Constitution.
to qualify
you try to
as
get
a
it
movie,
passed
you know what
in
I
your
mean?
area. At least the process of trying to get it passed will educate folks
But like the
about exactly
entertainment
what
value
has
here is much
happened.
lower than even
Tonight
the
on Now,
rehash
we consider the
episode.
subject
Police
of our
State 2
personal freedom
was
versus
better
the
than
public
this.
safety. It's not a philosophical question for the more than 1,000 Muslim men who have been secretly jailed, many of them secretly deported without having been linked to terrorism. It's not just a philosophical matter for the rest of us either. Our government's claim of broad new powers to deal with terrorism puts America in a twilight zone.
To those who scare peace-loving people with phantoms of lost liberty, my message is this.
What's with the zombie
Your
picture?
tactics only aid terrorists.
Would you like to sign a petition against the USA Patriot Act?
And here in the libraries, they're asking people to let them know what books you are reading.
Sneak and peek in people's houses, tap phones.
Do you think it's
tap
too late
email?
for us to get the Patriot
These
Act
citizens in
overturned?
Northampton, Massachusetts are petitioning Congress to repair the damage and repeal provisions of the Patriot Act. Other groups across the country are doing the same.
If more people knew what their Congress had signed onto, I think that they would all be signing petitions.
City Council of Fredericksburg and my family that lives here in Fredericksburg, I am honored to be here, and I want to thank the citizens of Fredericksburg for asking me last Friday to come out and present this. I have written a resolution that has been passed by cities, and similar resolutions have been passed by hundreds of cities across the United States, and Austin and Travis County are considering it and have said that they intend to pass it. Their city managers are going over it and changing some of the wording, and if the council would like to read over it and change anything, and then maybe have a meeting in a few weeks and go over it with the citizens, that would, certainly this is our community here in Central Texas, and as elected servants and officials, your input would certainly be appreciated.
A couple things that are essential in moving forward is that we have to understand is that the information that we have been told over the predominant media is an absolute scam. Yeah, what you see.
Yeah, it's a scam, bro.
We go forward in peace. We go
I used to
forward
think this
in
is
love,
what every city
but we
or county
also
meeting
go
looked like
forward
a
with the
full,
conviction and the knowledge
a full
that if we
receptive
do not
audience.
speak the truth right now and do what is right, not only our grandchildren and our children, but our fates are sealed toward one of the greatest sadnesses that we could ever think of. Each and every one of you has a choice. You can be quiet and sit on the sidelines, or you can be part of the Second American Revolution to restore not the democracy, but the republic.
His
Equal
ponytail's
laws
a
for
scam.
all people. Now I want to read you just a couple of very short quotes. The first one
Petty
is from
theft.
Dr. Johannes Cobell, and he said this just a couple months ago. Quote, "The interest behind the Bush administration, such as the CFR, the Trilateral Commission founded by Brzezinski for David Rockefeller, and the Bilderberg Group have prepared
Bilderberg.
for and are now moving to
These
implement
Bilderbergers, folks.
open world
Fingerprints all over
dictatorship
this.
within the next 5 years." This is a fact, friends. Now I'm going to give you another quote from probably the most powerful individual in the Western Hemisphere. And this human being has more power than George Bush times 5. He says, quote, "We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order." That is David Rockefeller. But this is how serious this is. Friends,
So serious, he took his glasses off.
we are not moving toward a police state. We are already in one. We all know this. We are in a police state, and this is not what America is supposed to be about. All you have to do is go down Mopac. There are 46 cameras, digital cameras, on Mopac in the last 6 months, wherever you're going, scanning your face. Over 300 cameras in the city of Austin, constantly, and there's a central place where this is insanity, friends. 3 or 4 years ago, if you read the book 1984 by George Orwell, it was pretty far out. But today,
He should circle back to that and be like, I'm trying to tell you
friends,
this is
all
5
of us here
times more
today,
powerful than
we have
Bush.
a choice. You know, we can take the proverbial blue pill and we can go to sleep.
Oh boy, red pill, blue pill.
Or, as Morpheus says, you can take the red pill. And he says, I don't know what's going to happen. You're going to go down the rabbit hole, but all I can offer you is the truth. And that's all that people such as myself and the hundreds of other patriots around the country, we're on Access Television, you hear us ranting and raving. But if you listen to
Look,
us,
I'm going to be
there's
honest.
something there. And
Can I
the
be-
reason
can I
that
be
we're doing,
honest
you
for
know,
a
we could
second?
be out playing tennis.
I think it is wild and insanely entertaining that this middle-aged man went down to a city meeting, quoted David Rockefeller, then quoted The Matrix. I mean, and I feel like from his energy, he feels like he's nailing this, like that. And I think part of that is because the room is filled with supporters, because obviously they want to see this pass.
With our families right now, just like you could be.
Well, this guy just cracks
This is
me
a
up.
good-hearted group of people. These are all of you. I know so many of you who care about it. We have to understand that this is a political, an economic, and a cultural debate in a crisis right now. But there's something more going on. This is a time of spiritual choice. And unless we speak the truth right now, And unless we stay in our hearts and look at these people right in the eyes without fear, we're all on the list. Folks, don't worry. You're all on the list right now. You know, there's no going back. The only way to protect ourselves is by going forward.
I don't think.
Yes.
Oh boy. I don't think, like, they're quoting The Matrix because it's cool and they wish that their ideology was like that. You know what I mean?
We go forward in peace. We go forward in love. But we also go forward with the
I don't think
conviction
that's
and the knowledge that if we
inherent
do
to the
not
source
speak the truth
material
right
at
now
all.
and do
What
what is
their
right,
like
not only
their
our
purposes.
grandchildren and our children, but our fates are sealed toward one of the greatest sadnesses that we could ever think of.
They're definitely
Each and every one of
envisioning
you has a
themselves
choice.
as the heroes in a
You
story
can be
that
quiet and sit on the sidelines, or you can be part
that's
of the Second
questionable.
American Revolution to restore not the democracy, but the republic. Equal laws for all people.
There's been several different definitions of terrorism. One is any action that can intimidate the government. Another one is anything that can hurt anybody. Section 802 of the First Patriot Act says any action that endangers human life that is a violation of any federal or state law. Okay? And there's pages of these new definitions. It's everything. It's anything. And we've got to go into this full throttle. We've got to resist it because they cannot stand this military-industrial complex coup. It's been a long time coming. They decided they want it all now. They can't stand if you stand against them. Your neighbor's a cop wearing that black ski mask. I mean, give me a break. You've got to give him or her information every day. You've got to show them how their kids are being enslaved. And when they suck their pension funds dry, which they're already doing, walk up and give them the World Bank documents that Greg Pallas brought out and go, here's their actual plan to take your pension fund, to cause riots, to set up military dictatorships. Joseph Stiglitz, the chief economist of the World Bank, quit over this and released these documents. We need more and more good people in and out of government at every level to blow the whistle, because there's nothing like it on earth to stand up against dehumanization, to follow our ingrained programming to resist tyranny. The scum running this country is going to set up a hell on earth. It is going to get as bad as you can imagine if you're going to let them. That's the nature of tyranny. That's the nature of the enforcers that tyrants have to hire. They always set up their own little local empires. Somebody wants your wife. Somebody wants your husband. Somebody wants your business. You're a competitor. Where'd Bob go? He disappeared. Oh, we better not talk about it because the subsections of the new Patriot Act say if you tell anybody you saw the men in black uniforms grab Bob, you get life in prison or secret execution. That's right. Secret execution. It's all in here. Now, if we tell this story and if we get the word out and if we educate people, there's no way they can get away with it. And the speakers have mentioned polarization. Exactly. That's what's killing us. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a constitutionalist. I'm an American. I'm a freedom lover. And if I'm going to be free, that means you've got to be free. And it just continually goes back to that central point. You know, when I was exposing Bill Clinton as a New World Order shill, I was an ultra-right-wing, conspiracy theorist. When I exposed Bush, I'm a communist. You know, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And this is what they're using to destroy us.
Alex Jones is just
Please
complaining
research
that
what's
if
happening.
you point
They've
out
got bills for
anything
national
bad
drafts for
against
men and women,
right
and you'll be
wingers,
serving
you're
here
a
at home digging
communist,
ditches.
and
I read the
then literally
programs.
live
Tattletale
that
programs where they
doctrine.
blow the economy out. You'll have to go to federal retraining. They're going to give you an ID card like Argentina.
Like
You
for
put your
decades.
cash credits on it each month. You want slavery, folks? You know, a shaved head, THX 1138. It makes Brave New World look like a picnic. So please fight these pieces of trash as hard as you can.
1138,
Have no
that's the
fear.
science
These people
fiction
must
movie
be
George
resisted.
Lucas
God bless you.
made. Is that part of the Alex Jones lore? Do we need to watch THX?
In fact, here is an
1138?
article out of the Huron Daily Tribune up in Michigan, and it says that citizens become very frightened of the United States government, and it goes on to say one particular concern is Section 802, which states that any crime that endangers human life and violates federal law could be declared an act of terrorism. And this is one of my radio listeners getting involved in the fight, and I commend these citizens who are concerned. Even conservatives in Salt Lake City, Capitol Rally slams Patriot Act as contrary to the Constitution. So they're in trouble. The left and right are waking up.
It is neat to see all these
More
old
and more
websites
cities are
play out.
passing this. It's very exciting. I interviewed the president of the Seattle city council, and he said that this was Nazi Germany. He said that they're all very concerned. And they're concerned because Democrats are supporting this bill and have introduced the Senate version of the second Patriot Act. And hey, that's the point about tyranny. If they can get away with Patriot Act 1, that's bad enough. I mean, Hitler could have done everything he did with Patriot Act 1. So could have Stalin. Now Patriot Act 2 is just insanely tyrannical. As we say, total enslavement. And on top of this, they have new bills like S-89 for compulsory national service, not just in the military, but in Homeland Security. And another thing that Homeland Security is doing, this new giant federal bureaucracy taking over the entire government, is that it's now taking over cities.
I'm sad we're back at the
and they're
desk.
already taking
like
the cities over before the bills are even passed. S-45 in the Senate states in Section 1 that the Office of State and Local Government Coordination for Homeland Security will no longer just oversee, but that now local cities' critical functions will be headed by a federal director. On Tuesday, February 11th, we noted a story in the Times-Picayune, the big daily paper in New Orleans, that the mayor announced a major overhaul of the city. New Homeland Security Office to oversee Cops, Firemen, Emergency Agency, 33 city agencies. The federal power grab taking place is widespread, and all Americans must mobilize to resist it. Think about that. They're already taking the cities over before they even pass the law, S-45. I mean, this, and by the way, guess who runs Homeland Security? A merger of FBI and the CIA. The drug-dealing torture masters of the CIA to run this. They've introduced bills for a national draft. What are bookstores doing? They're having to purge their files to avoid searches because the government's tying into their computers and downloading what books you read. But remember, the border stays wide open, and remember who's financed all the terrorists. Senate panels are coming out and saying, oh, we're warning against secret police, but then voting for secret police. So they'll come out and say it's bad, but then vote for it. So you hear on the news that they're standing up for your rights so you don't get involved. It's all military tactics to neutralize you so you don't get involved in the process. You know, not only have they announced that Mossad can kill American citizens in America, they're now saying that the CIA can kill citizens who aid al-Qaeda. Bush doesn't exempt Americans. Without a jury, without a trial, without an arrest, without charges, they just kill you. It's just a murder in the newspaper. And they're saying this? They're saying this? And a lot of you are going, whoa, I better shut up then. No. If you put up with this, they're going to take everything you got, your pension funds, your jobs. The new economy is surveillance and prisons. The military-industrial complex just decided, hey, why not overthrow America? Why not have a sophisticated coup using the media in Madison Avenue? If we don't stand up and say no to this in large numbers, whether you serve them or fight them, you're going to be abused. You cannot sign your children over. You cannot commit them to a life of living hell.
You fools, you're in danger! Can't you see? They're after you! They're after all of us! Our wives, our children, everyone! You're next! You're next! You're next!
Most people in government are good, lower down in the pyramidal structure. But as you get up into the higher levels, you have these globalists writing the policy for your state and local governments, for your police, for your military, slowly twisting their minds, legitimizing torture, legitimizing every form of corruption imaginable.
Folks, Axe body spray was foot in the door. That was the Patriot Act, .5.
Gotta tell them.
We must stand up against it. CIA can kill citizens who aid al-Qaeda.
They used
Bush
Axe
doesn't
body
exempt
spray to
Americans.
desensitize
Al-Qaeda's a
us for the
CIA
chemtrails.
creation. Here's that media advisory, muted response to Ashcroft's sneak attack on liberties. And it says, despite the draft legislation's authoritarian provisions, including one that would empower the government to strip Americans of their citizenship if they participate in lawful activities of any group that the Attorney General labels terrorists. See, this is just no judge, no jury. They just say it. Mainstream U.S. media has responded with only a handful of stories. This is frightening. And here's the report about the city council announces major overhaul of City Hall. And it says the federal government is taking over the city. So the states are mimicking the new federal powers. In Wisconsin, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reported, Stephen Megritz, it says he sued and deposed public officials. This is not going to be tolerated. This is paper terrorism. And they got him before a kangaroo court. And because he sued public officials, he's going to get 5 years in prison. The prosecutors tried to get 15 to life. So now the definition of terrorism is mushrooming, but you're thinking, oh, well, that's just Wisconsin. In Oregon,
Invisible desk.
the chairman of the
Why don't I
Judiciary
just buy the
Committee
InfoWars
in their
set? It's all
legislature,
being
a
liquidated.
Senator Menace,
I really
Menace
want
to
it
Liberty,
to.
he's the chairman of the committee. This thing has a good chance of passing, relating to terrorism, creating new provisions and amending Section 19, Chapter 666 of Oregon Code. Section 1A, they commit the crime of terrorism if the person knowingly plans, participates in or carries out any act that is intended by at least one of its participants to disrupt. So, a whole group becomes terrorist and gets life in prison if one person, one of its participants, carries out actions that are intended to disrupt. Now, here's the actions that everybody gets life in prison if one person carries it out. A, the free and orderly assembly of the inhabitants of the state of Oregon. B, commerce or the transportation system of the state of Oregon. Or C, the educational or governmental institutions of the state of Oregon or its inhabitants. You block a road, you block a street, you throw an egg, you have a car wreck and block the road. It says it.
Should we look at this
You
real
get
quick?
life in prison.
Okay. So it's saying that if a group of people carry out any of these acts that are intended by at least one of its participants to disrupt. So if you want to disrupt the free and orderly assembly of the inhabitants of the state of Oregon, then they don't care for that. If you try to disrupt the commerce of the transportation system of the state of Oregon, they don't like that. They don't want you to disrupt the educational or governmental institutions of the state. A person... Okay, that's it. The rest of this is something different. Yeah, okay. So it's saying that if you disrupt people's right to assemble, if you disrupt transportation, if you disrupt schools or government things, then they don't care for that.
It says a person convicted of terrorism shall be punished by imprisonment for life. This is what government would like to do.
Again, I'm not saying
now,
I agree with
Wisconsin,
any of
they pass
this or
these
anything
laws,
like that. I'm
and
just
you go to
trying
prison
to look
if you
at
sue a public official,
factually what
which
we're
is your
dealing
right
with,
to do, but
because
it doesn't matter now.
he kind of
They've
phrased it, in my
teams
opinion,
with
at least a little bit like you would get in
ski
trouble
masks
if you
don't
peacefully
submit.
assembled.
You
and that's
first
not at
met
all
them
what
right
it
after
says.
the 9/11 attack. They were the ones guarding the secret mountain bunker where top government officials would go in a national emergency. Take a look at the patch on their uniforms, because this is what you'll mostly be staring at after a major terrorist attack. It's the mark of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, police. FEMA's most important role would come after a major terrorist attack.
It's all
the minute
about
President
FEMA.
Bush declares a national emergency, FEMA becomes the boss. Federal documents lay out plans for what will happen to you if you survive. It's called consequence management. Executive orders going back to John F. Kennedy and the Cold War kick in. Order number 11002 directs the Postmaster General to register all residents, including the mayor, so movement and relocation can be controlled. Executive Order 10995 says FEMA takes over all radio and TV. Order 10997, FEMA takes over gas stations and electric companies. Order 10998, FEMA takes over grocery stores and farms. Order 10999, FEMA controls movements of cars and boats. Order number 11,000, FEMA can suspend wage laws and put labor forces to work without pay. Order number 11,001, FEMA takes over hospitals and schools. FEMA answers only to the National Security Council and the President. Congress
I'm
cannot
not
intervene
disputing that
for
those
6 months.
So you got to wonder,
things,
is that
but
why
I'd
the
like
federal
to
government
know,
hasn't given cities like St.
like,
Louis so
pertinent
much as a
information would
dime
be
for their
under what
own consequence
circumstances
management?
can they do
The
these
Federal
things?
Emergency Management
Like,
Agency is a
obviously,
blessing
if
for
there's
victims of
a
natural disasters, but in a
serious
nationwide crisis,
issue
FEMA has the
happening that
legal authority
affects
to replace the
everyone
U.S.
in the
government.
country or a good
Why would
portion of
such
the
a
country,
system be
then
created?
of course they would
Unless
be
there's a
allowed to cut in on
conspiracy to
whatever
use it.
television programming or radio programming.
Established in 1979 as a simple departmental merger, FEMA has
Or, like,
gained
in
enormous
certain cases,
power.
I could
It can
see them
provide
in,
the
like, a
muscle and
complete-
machinery for an already
We don't know
existing
whether
shadow
these are
government
just
to
things
take
that are being
charge
brought up
anywhere in
because they're
America.
like,
This
oh,
group of
oopsie,
non-elected
anytime you want to
bureaucrats
enact
can
these
declare martial
versus
law,
worst
arrest
case
dissidents, and
scenario
suspend
situations.
some of our constitutional rights, all in the name of national security.
And if that doesn't scare you, let's meet our
I
panel.
feel like we're missing a lot of
First,
context.
we have a talk radio host from Austin, Texas, who also runs the scary-sounding website Infowars.com. Please welcome Alex Jones.
Oh, boy.
Alex, you look a little paranoid. What's the conspiracy here?
I'm just thinking about the best way to warn the American people of this incredibly secretive, powerful organization that has tentacles down into every facet of our society. It is the machinery, it is the cogs that the national security dictatorship are now already controlling the country with and are expanding their control right now.
Anyone ever tell you sound like Patton?
We need somebody to take charge, but it's certainly not FEMA. We need to definitely warn the people about this organization.
How did they get so powerful, Alex?
Well, look, there's all this propaganda about how much they love us and how they take care of us. I mean, that was basically Hitler's line in Germany that convinced the German people. And every administration adds more powers to it. Republican, Democrat.
So they're taking Hitler's line.
We need to find the episodes of this show.
Yes, basically, Hitler burned the Reichstag. He created a crisis.
Oh, he's
to
always
follow his
talking
solution.
about the Reichstag.
And it's the same thing over and over again.
Constantly.
In fact, the federal government doesn't really have an incentive to stop disasters, to stop attacks. They get more control every time there is a disaster.
How can you stop a disaster? How can you stop
I'm also talking about terrorist attacks.
Well, yeah. Well,
I mean, they talk about how they're going to keep us safe, but they leave the borders wide open.
Well, that's not FEMA's job to stop terrorism.
Well, actually, if you look at it, they have a giant secret budget. It's called a black op budget. Tens of billions of dollars that we know about.
And where do they get that money?
From the federal government.
From the federal government. Who gets it from where?
From the American people.
You're giving them money. This Hitler organization.
That's right. The American people, of course, that's not the first time governments have taxed the population to enslave them. Look at Rome. I mean, Rome was great at that. But it's the same thing over and over again.
If they were going to take over the United States, like you're saying, wouldn't they have had a great opportunity to do
They've already taken over. I told you in '96 they control every radio and television station in the country.
They could control every radio.
That's right. They're putting the entire system in place.
If they didn't take over after that disaster in New York, I'm talking about the Yankees losing the series.
What kind of scenario? What kind of scenario do you think?
Hold on, let me take that.
If they didn't take over then, I mean, that was a perfect opportunity.
None of this stuff happens overnight. It's incrementalism, more and more power, more and more control. That's what we see developing here with FEMA. And look, it's been in the Washington Post, the New York Times, you name it, that Bush hasn't included the Speaker of the House, Leader of the Senate in direct line of ascension with codes, with access cards to the bunkers. They're not even including them in continuity of government. The first time in history our government activates that. FEMA is now in control.
How concerned are you about this? Do you lose sleep at night thinking about this?
Absolutely. I work as hard as I can on the radio.
Are you going to take a nap after this?
Hey, look, Infowars.com is dedicated to fighting this globalization, this New World Order.
Does this worry you?
No, FEMA doesn't worry me. I don't think that FEMA would ever have the power to impose any kind of martial law. That's only can be authorized by an act of Congress. And so I don't really see how the transfer of power would happen unless you're talking about an act of military takeover.
That's not
the
true.
NSC.
Go read the executive orders on FEMA.
How would it happen?
Look, it's already happening. The bunkers are in command right now.
Getting out of here.
It's where Cheney is.
There's an important point that you need to realize. I've made 8 documentary films. First one in 1997, America Destroyed by Design. I made Police State 2000, Police State 2, The Takeover, and now Police State 3, Total Enslavement. And we went and showed you the Marines training to confiscate your guns, training with foreign troops, admittedly to put Americans in FEMA camps. And now they're announcing on television and radio stations and in major newspapers plans to round you up, plans to shut down cities, plans to put you in camps. They built these camps. And you say, why would they do that? Why were there slaves? They make money off us. Folks, they print the money. They create the financial system to get control of you. It's not a free market. It's a controlled criminal enterprise. They control the fascists. They control the communists. They control the system. They control the UN. They control the U.S. They control all these countries through their power in the central banks. And through my 8 films, especially in Police State 2000 and Police State 2, The Takeover, and now with Police State 3, Total Enslavement, they're bringing it all together. We've shown you the training. I mean, I was there in '97 forecasting exactly what's happening now today with the thumb scanners going in the grocery stores, hooked up with the state police driver's license, which is a unit of the national ID card, hooked in with the UN calling for a world ID card. They set the system up, then announce it to you. Let's go ahead and go into torture. All over the news, they're calling for torture, but not just of terrorist suspects, tortured until proven guilty. And you're always guilty. You always confess, I guess, even if you didn't commit it. Now they're saying, let's talk about torturing people's children. I read sick editorials saying that let's put cigarettes out on people's genitalia. Who can argue with that? I mean, they're actually saying this. They've been on the news doing it.
They're going to bring the kids in with guns to their head and threaten them in that way. But what about the idea of reminding him that his kids are in custody and leaving open the possibility that who knows what's going to happen to them if he doesn't start sharing information?
They are trying to get him to talk by making him fear for the well-being of his children and to fear so strongly for their well-being that it basically breaks his will. Then you're slipping into, if not torture, cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment.
Who defines that? I mean, I understand there's a definition here, and I see the definition, but it doesn't define it beyond just saying that severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental. It seems that every day law enforcement uses techniques where they lie, they trick. It seems that every day law enforcement uses techniques where they lie, they trick. They get people to trust them, etc.
That's okay. Lying and tricking, getting people to trust you, that's all okay. And you're right to point out that these aren't norms that are, written hard and fast and easily. Obviously, if you put electric shocks to somebody's genitals, that's torture. How much you can kind of play around psychologically is a much more difficult to judge.
Dr. Wheeler, welcome. Tell us what you want to do to this guy.
Whatever is necessary to extract the information that he has out of his brain. And I mean whatever is necessary.
Well, when you say whatever is necessary, you'd cause him any amount of pain, any amount of torture for a long period of time. Would that be acceptable to you?
Alive. It's acceptable, but it's not necessary because I think it can be extracted a lot quicker.
All right, you have some, I just want to put up on the screen here. Here's what you say, just to get to the heart of this here. Here's what you say in your piece today, your op-ed piece. You say, place him under the fMRI brain scanner, put him on a mechanical respirator, give him an injection of a paralytic drug, and then what do you make sure he's telling the truth, and when he's not, you just take him off the respirator for a period of time, right? Make him start suffocating.
You put him under a mechanical respirator, and what you do is you've paralyzed his lungs so he can't breathe. You've got him under this fMRI, which you can tell by the brain scan if he's lying or if he's telling the truth.
Oh my God.
And guess what their model country is? Communist China. They get all the UN awards, all the US companies go there. They're the model, where they have torture vans. And I saw this photograph of a young woman being choked by police with self-satisfied power trip looks on their face, taking her to these death vans with automatic injectors. And Channel 4, National British Television, airs Chinese artist eating babies, a popular act in Beijing, they said. And this is their model for you and your family.
Like a potato.
And then Bush gets up on the news and says, Saddam's evil. He tortures children. He tortures people. Yeah, that is evil. And then they cut to the news program right after, and they're saying, let's torture kids. I mean, it's crazy, the things that are happening. And back in 2001, there were stories, and in 2002, where they admitted the CIA was flying people out. In the Washington Post, to third-party countries where they could torture them and, quote, threaten their families, threaten their children. And millions of Americans read this and go, oh, I'll be safe if we torture children. Doesn't this show you that this government's illegitimate and, yes, did carry out the attacks as a pretext to do all this? You can't believe any confessions that come out of someone who's been tortured. And if you're thinking, yes, you can, well, then I guess Joseph Mengele was good in the death camps. I guess when our troops got shot down over northern Vietnam and tortured, I guess that was good. I guess we can believe those confessions. A government that'll torture is criminal. Don't you understand that? And to prove that torture is going on, they're promoting it, and that's obvious, and admitting it, but there are good men and women in government who aren't compartmentalized and realize what's happening. Quietly, calmly, the AP and the New York Post reported in late 2002 that Brigadier General Rick Baucus, that's a multi-star general, resigned. And then the headlines came out, okay, he was released because he refused to torture people at Camp X-Ray. And it also came out that some of our military officers were quitting over in Afghanistan, refusing to torture people. You're thinking, hey, those are terrorists, torture them. The U.S. government got caught by Seymour Hersh at the New Yorker magazine, and then MSNBC and Fox even reported it, that 6,000, now it's up to 8,000, Taliban and Al-Qaeda cream was flown out to safety as Kandahar fell. They were all CIA. It was their job to play the part of the bad guys, to destabilize the country. Then the globalists come in and take over, who founded them back in the 80s. They're flown out to safety on C-130s to Pakistan to start the next war with India. They're provocateurs. Camp commander relieved of duties, the commander of Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where suspected terrorists are being detained, was removed from his post. And then the news later came out that, yes, it was indeed torture. London Guardian, Afghan prisoners beaten to death at U.S. military interrogation base. Here's another one, BBC. Prisoners killed at U.S. base. London Independent, American admits the suspects died in interrogation.
In any way.
They
I feel like a lot of
beat
this
them to
was
death.
super high profile.
That's what you want your sons learning how to do?
Abuse
coming back here and becoming police officers? And we got Alan Dershowitz on the left saying torture's good. Quote, we need to put needles under people's fingers. It says this on CNN.
I mean, I've
on the Abrams report, they come out and say, hey, why can't we threaten people's children? Talk about disgusting. Here's another one, London Telegraph. CIA holds young sons of captured Al-Qaeda. There's a big discussion of torturing them. There was that article by Jack Wheeler interrogating Khalid Muhammad. It goes on to say, the old-fashioned way, right out of the movies, putting out cigarettes on testicles, breaking ribs, the whole brutal 9 yards. It says, by exposing and unraveling the plot, it says the ethics of torturing should not be an issue. Putting out cigarettes on testicles? I mean, am I living in the ninth circle of hell with demons around me? Our minds warped. You ask how the Nazis did what they did? It was for the homeland. Now it's happening. We got Pat Buchanan on the right.
Talked
the case
about
for
the
torture.
For a while.
He goes on to say how wonderful
the
it
case
is.
For torture.
ABC News, torture for terrorists. Again, suspected terrorists. Now they say they're children. U.S. turns to torture to crack prisoners of war. Sydney Morning Herald. And then you read an article out of the Austin American Statesman from back in October of 2002. Teen died after banned restraint used. Death of Mason County program, not the first for company that runs it. And it turns out they got all over the country. Do a search. They got this restraint where they choke you, twist your arms around, and kneel on your head. And it's known to close the breathing tubes. They use similar restraints on the young lady going to the Chinese death vans by choking her. And you die.
That doesn't look like the picture.
Killing people. And kids have died in public schools who were, quote, restrained. And nothing happens. See, this is the torture, being institutionalized. And they also have moves, it's all the way at the Supreme Court now. Courts have been agreeing that they can grab citizens and forcibly drug them, that now the court can say you're mentally ill without a doctor even saying it. A Dr. Charles T. Sell of St. Louis, a dentist who exposed some of the Waco cover-ups, was grabbed, has been forcibly drugged for 5 years, and has been put in solitary confinement without even being charged. And the charge that they're discussing giving him, Medicaid fraud, only has 2-year sentence. But he's been held in solitary confinement for years, being forcibly drugged, and now it's all the way up to the Supreme Court.
This
I mean,
reputable
our police
source
in Austin, Texas,
who
where I live,
also
they've got lines of armored
believes that
personnel carriers
Waco was,
downtown now. They've all got these weird black uniforms and ski
Waco
masks. They've got cameras and microphones hanging out of the trees. But there's
and
crack
was
dealers
accused of
lining the
Medicare
streets. They
fraud.
won't bust them, but they'll pull you over and your family and demand to search your car in violation of the Fourth Amendment. This is turning into Nazi Germany. I don't care what anybody says. The evidence is everywhere.
We are living
Think about what these governments do. Think about the hell on earth that is being created. And then with the dehumanization, we have national British television, how wonderful eating babies are in China. We have kids, aborting babies in restrooms at the schools, nothing happening to them. Government urges under 16s to experiment with oral sex in England to keep the birth rate down. Teachers with criminal records remain in schools. Harvard professor argues for abolishing white race. They're on the news saying white people are evil, abolish the white race. What if you were saying abolish the black race? This is all offensive. Dehumanization. Students' pro-life t-shirt is equivalent to swastika, banning everything that's wholesome. Euro rules force church bodies to employ atheists. There's a discussion of banning the Old Testament. Europe saying it's full of hate. Here's another headline. Has China become an ally? New York Times. Yeah, China's the big ally. They're the model country because they got death execution vans and secret executions and everything Patriot Act 2 calls for. There's a thing called bug chasers, Rolling Stone magazine. And it turns out that 25% of new HIV-infected gay men sought out the virus, says a San Francisco health official. They say they worship the virus. They want death. This is their own words. I mean, what's happened to our society? By the way, they already have eugenics of people in this country who are begging for food. I've interviewed Wesley Smith, Wall Street Journal writer. He lists the names in his book, Culture of Death, where hospitals, if you don't have any guardians, are pulling the tubes as you beg for food and water. No food order stands. Judge won't override guardian's decision. Who's the guardian? The state. It's just a totally overturning society. You've got to have your own moral compass, folks, not one given to you by the government. Doctor says he'll build U.S. suicide machines. I interviewed a big head of one of the federal government agencies on my show. He says that retarded children should be killed. Dr. Peter Singer calls them worthless mackerel. They said they should check fetuses in the womb and make you have abortions. And it's nuts. Studies show surge in psychiatric drugs for young people. Tens of millions now. Now they've approved it for toddlers. The Pentagon wants to put all our military on drugs. It's like so much.
Yes, why not? That'd be hilarious.
They're warping your mind. They're telling you torture.
Okay, all right. I am checking out Culture of Death by Wesley Smith.
No respect for life is a good idea. Don't allow yourself to sink to this level. Do you want to have a government, a big, powerful organization running your life that's legitimized torture? In any terrorism case, under Patriot Act 2, that's any activity, even lawful activities. Do you want your children being tortured? You want to keep sliding downhill to this abyss? It's so obvious what's happening. God help us.
Now we're going to look at biometrics, the cashless society control grid. You'll be satellite tracked and taxed.
I mean, there's definitely some truth in that.
They're talking about 65 cents a mile during peak times. The federal government is preparing and pushing the states to implement this system. We're talking about RFID tracker chips in the money and almost all products you buy at the store that will track and trace what you do. The Cold War era echelon system is being beefed up to listen to every phone call, read every fax and email, track all purchases made by Americans. And meanwhile, the border stays wide open. This is about total taxation, total control, total surveillance.
Leave your purse and wallet at home.
That's right. Soon you'll be shopping with biometric technology, where your fingerprint helps you pay. A Central Texas company is behind the high-tech concept. However, with this convenience comes a question about privacy.
Several Central Texas grocery and retail stores offer a new way to buy and bag. The Kroger's grocery stores in Bryan and College Station are piloting a project that uses fingerprints that link to your credit, debit card, or checking account. You choose how it's set up.
Now, Annie, please type your telephone number.
Your telephone number acts as a password, so does your driver's license. But your fingerprint double checks that password. Identity theft is a growing crime nationwide. In this case, a little more security requires a little invasion of your privacy. And so far, many customers are willing to trade that for a little extra convenience.
And now Troy with his finger on the weather. That's right. Reject.
That would go. Yeah, luckily it's not, we're not linked into the police department.
No, not yet at this point.
Don't
tell them the secret.
I was curious about the new policy with the thumb scanners. You tell me about those?
You take thumbprints on all tests.
Have you put the thumb scanners in yet? They put them up in College Station, right?
On all
it doesn't matter. Whatever.
So I guess you're going to have them like right there in the future.
All right, bye.
So for check cashing,
all this stuff's really high tech. Trying to catch the bad guys. Yeah, there's a federal plan to put them in all over the country. You know, that's like the system they use when you get your driver's license.
Yes. So if somebody gets taken in for a fraud check, that's what they can tell is with the thumb scanner from when they get the driver's license and the thumbprint on the check.
Interesting. When are they going in here?
It depends on how well this thumbprint goes over.
Oh, how well what'd you say?
How well the thumbprint system, like we do the ink, so depending on how well this goes over will depend on whether we get the stuff in the machines.
Oh, if people like it.
If it works well. So if we catch a lot of people with checks, or it reduces our amount of fraud checks.
Well, Arlington said they're making it the law up in
really?
North Texas. Well, thanks for the help.
So I want you to understand this.
Oh boy,
you're
here
going
we
to be
go
taxed
again.
and
Why
traced
is the
and followed.
picture so
They want to make the
small?
law, satellite tracking systems in all your cars. The hardware and software is already in all the new cars, just to have the interface plugged in. We're only a few years away from this. Your television sets, and they have digital cable hooked into them, are watching in detail what you watch. They've got face scanning cameras on the streets. They're going in the grocery stores, following and tracking what you're doing, building detailed psychological algorithms on you. They're face scanning you and thumb scanning you to get driver's license now.
I think there's just that little tiny bit of truth in it that there is some
that's where they get the face scan and the thumb
surveillance that matters or that's
you at the grocery store or
malicious, but in my opinion, that's mostly tied back into the corporate world, not the government.
That, we have the Pentagon saying,
I mean, they have a strong sway over the government,
now, that's the
but
hallmark of
I think it's
Mexico
still a
or Russia,
corporate plan.
Guatemala, or communist China. You have the army, the military, watching the people. And for those of you that are watching this program many years from now, I want you to understand that you're going to have more terrorism come out of all this, because the very military-industrial complex that is now enslaving and taking control of the people are the ones that stand to gain for more terrorism. And the evidence clearly shows they are instituting and carrying out the terrorism. That is small compartmental units of this behemoth federal government that is becoming an imperial world government. Most people in government are good throughout the pyramid, but that key cabal at the top controls and sets the policy for the entire beehive type society. So understand, maximum surveillance, maximum big brother tracking and tracing that dwarfs the nightmare vision of George Orwell in 1984.
Maximum surveillance, total enslavement.
THX 1138 Matrix-like system. The chains are being forged. We're being put into this brave new world. And people need to face the scope of this electronic straitjacket that's being projected against you and your family. Now we need to talk about the Total Information Awareness Network and how it ties into the cashless society control grid. You know, H.R.R. Tolkien, the famous South African, wrote a book about this evil demon in a mythical world who had this pyramidal tower with this burning eye that could see everything.
Oh no, not a Lord of the Rings Alex Jones crossover.
And I pointed out on my radio show that that was the symbol of the Total Information Awareness Network. And then right after that, I saw an article in USA Today and in the Washington Post. One of them read, "The Eye is Watching," and it says, in J.R.R. Tolkien's fantastic work of fiction, The Lord of the Rings, the Dark Lord Sauron, not able to maintain a physical form, attempting to dominate Middle-earth, is depicted as an evil eye, able to penetrate time, space, and the human mind. The evil force sought to dominate Middle-earth. In a bizarre and frightening case of life-imitating art, the United States Defense Department has created an office that seeks those same limitless powers as Tolkien's Dark Lord. The Information Awareness Network seeks what it calls total information awareness. The agency has even adopted the New World Order symbol of a pyramid with an all-knowing eye hovering above it that is seen on top of the back of the $1 Federal Reserve note. Taking a symbolism a step further, the eye casts the rays down upon the planet Earth. My friends, they've now announced, way back in 2002, that the Scientific Atlantic cable boxes, the digital cable boxes, watch what you watch. They don't just watch you physically. No, they pierce your mind. They build psychological algorithms. Every part of the show is IQ scored, the psychological rating, the ads are even scored, and it all goes back, and computers go through that data, just like cookies when you surf the internet, but with more detail. It's worse than 1984. It doesn't just see what you're physically doing, it builds detailed psychological profiles of you. There's satellite tracker systems already in all the new cars, ready for the hubs to be plugged in. The federal government is announcing that they want to do this. They're preparing the states. We're only a few years away from it. They're standardizing it and promoting it as a safety feature. It'll track, trace, turn your car off, tax the living daylights out of you. Face scanning cameras in the grocery stores, just total control. Every email, every fax, everything you do tracked and traced. And the symbol is New World Order with an all-seeing burning red eye radiating the earth. Well, folks, the New World Order, the Illuminati, it's a real organization. It's in your history books in Germany. Symbol was an all-seeing eye. It's admitted the Eye of Lucifer, put on our dollar bill in 1913 when the Federal Reserve took over and did the redesign. So Tolkien, who was a person who studied the occult, admittedly, and medieval writings, simply picked the symbol of Satan for his book, for his evil character. So it's art imitating life. It's not life imitating art. Do you understand that? And in USA Today and the Washington Post are just throwing this in your face. Look at Time Warner symbol, the 666 and the all-seeing eye. Look at ABC. Look at Fidelity. Look at, there are hundreds of major corporations. In fact, I looked at the symbols of the Fortune 500. I just went and spot checked about 80 or 90 of them the other day before we did this presentation. And out of the 80 or 90, 40 plus of them had the all-seeing eye, and many of them had a 666 in the middle. I mean, it's hidden in plain view, burning all-seeing eyes. Look around you. And they're announcing their New World Order. They just said it, all-seeing eye, New World Order. I mean, it's crazy. And then they throw it in your face. Big Brother is back. The Pentagon plan to eyeball America's database is drawing fire as its controversial salesman. And a lot of these people argue, the head of Oracle, again, Oracle, and they're all seeing eye, says, oh, well, all your data is already public, so what? With the private groups. Yeah, and they're all working for the globalists, sharing this information. They're going to enforce it on the local level, at the grocery store, everywhere else.
For his personal benefit, or you want to, like an
Big
audio
Brother
book
is back.
of him reading them?
It says the official logo is the Pentagon's secret new terrorist detection experiment isn't subtle. All-seeing eye of the New World Order. Big Brother will be watching America. Giant information matrix to track movements.
Matrix.
Federal regulators ease restrictions on technology that can see through walls. This is all their system. They say they're going to have hover drones watching us at all times, and they've been given the technology to police for 5 years. It's a crisp black and white image of everything you do in your home. You're going to look through 4 feet of concrete, and that's just what they're giving police now.
What was that person doing
FBI
in the
spy
car?
planes control U.S. and use systems to look through your
and
walls.
Why were they posed like that?
And it continues. You are a suspect. William Safire in the New York Times says, every purchase you make with a credit card, every magazine subscription you buy, medical prescription you fill, every website you visit, email you send or receive, every academic grade you receive, every bank deposit you make, every trip you book, every event you attend, all these transactions and communications will go into what the Defense Department describes as a virtual, centralized grand database. And then it says that it will also add all private stuff.
Again, I don't doubt any
and
of
you know why they're
this
throwing this
as
in your
far
face
as our
as a
data
chilling
being
effect,
harvested,
so you don't stand
but
up against it.
I again
Let me give you a little
disagree
secret.
with him
They
that
they
it's
can
part
listen
of a
to everything
globalist
you do.
movement. I think
they
it's
don't have
corporate
personnel.
interests
They had 10
that are
million
most
people.
wanting that
They
data.
couldn't read all the billions of faxes and emails and letters, even with keyword
Doesn't
software.
mean that our
so
government
they don't have
doesn't
personnel to actually
collect it as
implement
well,
this
but I
unless
just
you
don't think
accept
it's
all
part of a
this evil,
globalist
accept
agenda.
torture, accept this mind warp, and go along with it. They need you to play along. You can stop this. But if you do play along, go ahead and serve them. They're going to absolutely ruin your life and your children's life. They seem to go after folks that serve them even more. It's like God allows it to happen or something. I've just observed it for years. So you are a suspect. Just throwing it in your face. Pentagon to track American consumer purchases. The Pentagon to track you. The definition of martial law and dictatorship. Here's another one. Pentagon plans a computer system that would pick at personal data of Americans. Here's another one. Human barcodes. And it says biometrics, such as voice, print, retina, iris, face scans, creates a digital barcode, a number a human number. Let he who hath understanding reckon that number. Where did I hear that before?
Well, the budget for this had to be pretty low.
Isn't that interesting? And it says that the U.S. Army is keeping all those fingerprints and faces and voices from the driver's license bureaus. And it just so happens to be working with the grocery stores and malls and Walmart with little RFID tags that'll be in all products by 2004, already in half of Walmart products. And they are the tenth the size of a grain of sand with microscopic fiber antennas, and the cell towers read them. And when you leave, they're already face scanning you off your driver's license database photo when you leave the stores, and then they're tracking you and everything you do, and the chips are in your clothes and everywhere. Oh, I have the articles, stacks of them, just stacks of them right here. All of them, you know, MSNBC, Washington Post, the tracker chips already all over your body. And they're saying we only did take microchips or our kids won't be safe. I mean, it's incredible.
This is the microchip that could one day be implanted under the skin of every single American.
Where's Rod Serling? It's like the Twilight Zone.
Hold on. Okay. Let me take a break here.